In the Shadow of the Valley by Maggot Moshpit, Chapter 2. Martin sat down on the fallen tree, looking wistfully at the empty food parcel, his injured tail lying like a rope on the log.
Damn.
He hated foraging for food, mostly because he had no idea what was edible and what would kill him. He picked up a breadcrumb and licked it off his claw, grumbling. He looked at his claw. If he ever wanted to see it raked across the neck of the regent, he would have to find food. Throwing the parcel aside, he continued east, wishing he had stopped and picked the snowdrop berries he spotted a few days ago. After crashing through the woods for another couple hours, with no sound but the drone of the occasional insect and the crunch of snow, he stopped and looked to his left, hearing a hopeful sound. The buzzing characteristic of a very delicious and rare hard-shelled insect. Martin drew his sword. He glanced around a tree and witnessed an entire nest of the things, burrowing into the tree. One glout was just sitting apart from the rest, a huge oval thing with a crease down the middle for its wings. Although it was colored to appear like the wood to camouflage itself from hungry beasts and predatory insects, this particular glout was much too large for it to be effective. Martin approached slowly, bringing the hilt of his blade up close to his chest, ready to give a mighty thrust. He was 2 feet away when a shout from behind him startled the glouts, and they buzzed away into the misty morning sky.
Hey! Those are mine!
Martin whirled around and brandished the sword at where the voice should have been. However, it seemed whoever shouted had shouted from a very long distance away, and were now running towards Martin. By the time they arrived, huffing and puffing, Martin was sitting down on the snow, waiting.
Don't touch my glouts.
Martin was surprised. The short man standing before him was a skunk, neither canine or feline, but mustelid.
Your glouts? You were all the way over there.
I saw them first.
How? I was right about to kill one before you showed up.
He stomped his foot and growled.
Whatever. We can still catch them if we hurry.
Martin spotted one descending into the forest.
We? I think not, you loud, stout mustelid.
He took off running, his better built, longer legs giving him the advantage. The skunk huffed indignantly and ran after him.
Rude, argumentative canine!
Martin dashed up a small bank of snow and lunged at the glout, swinging the sword in midair. However, he misjudged its weight, and only managed to slam the hilt into the hard-shelled insect. The skunk came bowling into his back, and him, Martin, and the glout rolled head over heel over antenna through the snow down the other side of the bank. The glout wasted no time untangling itself, and hissed foam at the two before opening its wing casings and flapping its wings. Martin struggled to untangle his cloak from the weapon on the skunk's belt before it was drawn.
Its wings are damaged. I think I can get it.
Flapping uselessly, the insect spat more foam and scuttled awkwardly across the snow. Through some seemingly impossible burst of strength, the skunk dragged Martin, still attached to his belt, over to the glout, and with one mighty swing of his short, flat blade, the insect was cloven in two. Martin finally rid himself of the cloak and sprang up, swinging his sword.
Where is it? Where?
He saw the skunk happily munching away at the succulent meat of the glout, his blade stabbed into the snow.
Very good. Here, have half since you helped.
He tossed the other half of the glout to Martin, and they sat together, sating their hunger. After he had eaten his fill, Martin turned to the skunk. His face was thin, but his body looked strong, despite his stocky build. He had very strange stripes on his face, not characteristic of the few skunks Martin had seen in his life. He used to see them in Frostbite, back when the war was still cold.
What is your name?
My name? Bronze Mason.
What? Like the metal?
Yes. I don't know why my parents named me that. And you?
Martin Bellero.
What? Like Pine Martin?
So, Bronze, what brings one of your kind here? Don't you have your own war to fight with the felines? Why come into canine territory?
The winds blew me here, friend. I wander where I please.
Martin nodded and looked at Bronze's blade.
That's an odd weapon there. No cross hilt.
He picked up the blade and swung it around.
Yes. Well, it's not a weapon, but a tool. Used for clearing brush and making paths through dense foliage.
He offered it to Martin.
It's very light and sharp.
The blade had little heft and was short, with a slightly curved handle to improve leverage.
I see how this can be an effective weapon. Where are you headed?
Right now, well, a friend of mine lives up here, but he's still very far away. I doubt our paths are compatible.
Martin was about to agree when he realized he had no idea where his destination was. The canine army would keep him safe if he reached them, but they wouldn't help him in saving his daughter. What he needed was a band of mercenaries, and for that, he needed money.
I don't know where my path is. Who is this friend of yours?
Oh, he is quite pleasant. An alchemist of the highest regard. He knows many things and has created many things.
Martin tossed aside the carcass of the insect and stood.
I shall follow you.
Bronze studied him curiously.
Where do you come from? Why do you wish to speak to my friend? He has many enemies, and if they hired you to—
No, I'm not an assassin. Look.
Martin sat back down and told Bronze the tale of Miri and the Regent. He pulled out a wooden spoon and a blood-stained leather strip and showed them to Bronze.
I don't have a family, but I can understand. I believe my friend can help you. He knows many things, as I said.
Martin handed the blade back to Bronze, and they stood once more.
Let's see your friend. What's his name?
I don't know.
Miri sat with 3 other captives, sewing battle standards and clothes for the soldiers. Felines preferred not to wear an overabundance of armor, instead relying on their natural agility and skill, often taunting the canines before battle by running around in circles, knowing that with all the armor they wore, they couldn't do the same. Miri looked at the 2 other slaves. They didn't speak to her and focused on their work. Earlier, Redrick had been tasked by the Regent to tell Miri of the planned execution of her father. Of course, when they couldn't find him anywhere, there was a search, but the feline trackers determined that he had too much of a lead on him, and they would lose the trail a full day before they estimated catching up to him. Despite this, in an outburst Miri witnessed herself, he ordered all the trackers to catch him anyway, and not to come back until they brought him his head. Miri had faith in her father. She knew he was armed, and she knew the burning hate he felt for the Regent, a hate which she shared. Redrick scurried in and tapped Miri on the shoulder. She had taken a liking to the small, desert native fox. He was nice to her, where the other slaves seemed to give her the cold shoulder.
Miri, maybe you should take the next load of cloth now.
What? It's only half full.
The look in his eyes said the cloth wasn't the objective.
All right, Redrick.
She stood, taking a basket of completed clothes and walking quickly down the passageway, Redrick heading back the way he came. Miri stepped into the linen closet and set down the basket.
Hello?
Frey stepped out of nowhere.
Shh. Keep your voice down.
Frey, what are you doing here?
Martin asked me to keep you safe.
She gasped.
Where is he?
He ran. Before he did, though, he told me he would return. The look in his eye would send a shiver down the spine of the most hardened general.
She sighed with relief, then tensed up.
What if he does something rash?
He might. I don't know.
He paused, as if unable to formulate the words he wanted to say.
Has the Regent hurt you?
No. No.
Good. I must leave. Be careful.
She nodded, and Frey gestured for her to leave first. She did, emptying the basket and returning to the other 2 seamstresses. She continued her work, glancing at the other 2. They did not look up. Martin and Bronze walked wearily through the woods, keeping an eye out for more food. Martin sighed and ripped a leaf off a nearby tree, stuffing it into his mouth.
Blech. Do you know where this friend of yours is? Are you sure that map is right?
Bronze took the roll of parchment out of the small pouch he kept things in and looked at it.
Yes, I'm sure it's that mountain right there. Lots of minerals in that mountain.
He pointed at the tip of a mountain that poked over the trees. Martin groaned.
Ugh, it'll take us weeks to get there.
Calm down. Regents aren't in the business of killing their, slaves.
That's not what I'm worried about.
They walked in silence some more until Martin spotted something in the woods.
Wait. What's that?
Get down!
They dropped to the snow at Bronze's exclamation and waited.
What? What did you see?
I thought I saw something moving. Let's crawl over there and see.
Ignoring the cold of the snow underneath their paws, they crawled quickly to the edge of a road, beaten down by many carts and foot soldiers passing through. In the middle of the road lay a ghastly scene. 2 dead feline soldiers lay next to a deserted cart, which was covered by a tarp. Bronze looked at Martin.
What do you make of it?
I have no idea. The canines couldn't be responsible. They're too far off.
A cough made both their heads snap up. They drew weapons, and Bronze etched a simple shape in the snow, indicating a pincer movement around the cart to where the sound had come from. They each took a side and circled around. However, it became apparent that caution was unnecessary, as the only thing on the other side of the cart was a bloodied feline soldier, clinging onto the last vestige of life. He brandished a knife at Martin as he approached.
Get back!
Bronze joined him, and the pair looked down at the piteous form of the soldier. He had slashes all over his chest, and his tail was missing. Bronze shook his head.
It's too late for him.
What? You weren't considering helping him, were you?
Well, of course. He's a savaged, bloody rag. He can't hurt us.
The soldier groaned in pain and dropped the dagger.
LaRoche.
Martin leaned in.
Tell me what happened here.
General. Report.
Martin, he's on the edge. Soon he'll tumble into the abyss. He can't tell us.
A demon! A demon! She was like the wind.
He gasped and went limp. Both of the travelers were left haunted by the soldier's last words. Martin stood, taking the dagger from the dead soldier and slipping it into his pocket. Bronze opened the eyelids of the soldier.
Face death with open eyes so the devil may gaze into your soul.
He stood also and opened his mouth. He wasn't able to begin speaking as something moved inside the cart and caused both of them to jump away and spin around, weapons poised.
Hey, if you're not here to kill me, then get me out of this tarp!
Martin and Bronze exchanged glances, then approached the cart cautiously.
Who's in there?
The struggling continued.
A prisoner! An enemy of the felines!
Martin severed the ropes that held down the tarp, and it was thrown aside. A raccoon jumped out and slipped on a patch of ice, tumbling to the ground.
Thanks.
A scavenger.
Scavengers didn't fit into any society, it seemed. Few and far between, the loose assortment of rats, raccoons, and squirrels tried to get by the best they could while being shunned by the more well-organized subspecies. Known for being forced into thievery, many could not get work, and the vicious cycle made them into street urchins.
Yes, I know my heritage, wolf.
Bronze helped him onto his feet and dusted him off.
There. Now tell us your name, friend.
Oh. I don't think I have a real name. I like to be called Arbalist, though.
Martin looked him over. He was skinny, but surprisingly did not look malnourished. In fact, he looked surprisingly healthy. His face was masked in black fur, and he looked like the kind of person who might laugh at any joke, but it was clear he hadn't laughed in a very long time. He wore rags and shivered in the wind.
A scavenger without a name being taken to prison.
Bronze glared at him.
That tone tells me you don't trust him.
Arbalest grabbed the remains of the tarp and wrapped it around himself.
Don't blame him. But I am not a thief, and I have no quarrel with you, and you have nothing I need.
I didn't mean to imply anything.
Forget it.
Okay.
Something about Arbalest's tone was very intimidating. However, Bronze didn't seem to care.
What were you arrested for?
Arbalest went over to the nearest soldier and flipped his body over, searching him.
I was a witness to a murder. They found me running in terror, and they arrested me for being the murderer.
His search not satisfying him, he moved to the next soldier. Martin spoke, his mouth dry.
What happened here?
Arbalest stopped and stood, empty-pawed and looking very distraught.
Of course.
He gestured around the carnage.
I don't know what happened. Someone came along, killed the guards, and left. Didn't touch me, though.
Martin glanced at the sons.
Well, it was nice making your acquaintance. What are you looking for?
Damn it! It's not here!
Arbalest kicked the body of the third soldier and yelled. Bronze got a look of sympathy in his eyes, while Martin remained thoroughly terrified at this rogue individual.
Something they took from you?
Yes, I must find it. Where are you going? Are you going to kill lots of felines?
Martin immediately took more of a liking to the raccoon.
Yes, absolutely.
Bronze didn't look so sure, but he didn't disagree. Arbalest lifted a spear from the ground and walked over to the other two, addressing Martin.
Are you going to the capital?
Martin looked to Bronze, and Bronze tilted his head.
Why?
It must be there. In their vaults, or in the law office, or someplace else there.
Martin shook his head, trying to comprehend Arbalest's motives.
What's so important you need to go to the capital as a fugitive?
Never ask me that question again. Are you going to the capital?
No.
Arbalest turned and walked in the direction of the mountains, folding the tarp into a more compact cloak.
Then I'm going. It was nice to meet some nicer people.
Bronze and Martin exchanged another glance, then followed him.
You know, we're headed for the mountain. We can part ways when we reach it, if you'd like a little mutual protection.
Arbalest had a brisk pace, and Bronze had trouble keeping up. Martin, however, did not.
Do as you please. It matters not to me. Please, tell me your stories. I do not travel with strangers.
The snow leopard tracker triplets sat in the snow, desperately trying to plan out their next move. Ziff, the head tracker and the eldest by 8 seconds, looked out over the treetops.
He could have gone to the mountain, or he could have followed the river we passed earlier, or...
Zip, the middle child by 8 seconds, hissed at Ziff.
We know where he could have gone. What we need is where did he go?
Zick, the youngest by 8 seconds, stabbed the snow with his short sword.
Why do we need to bring back this blacksmith anyway? Is he worth sending 40 soldiers out to find?
Ziff chided him.
Dear brother, the regent must keep his face. He cannot appear weak in front of the townsfolk.
Or us.
Zip added. All three simultaneously looked over at the 40-odd soldiers camping at the bottom of a hill they were sitting atop. Ziff stood and took a few steps towards the mountain, looking over the hill at the other side. He tensed up.
Brothers, look at that!
Is that a glout carcass?
Yes, it is.
They stalked over to the spot where Martin and Bronze had been a short day ago. Zip studied the area.
2 people sat here. See the indentation?
Ziff nodded.
Look, their tracks are just barely visible.
Zick looked at where the tracks led.
They're going to the mountain.
All three dashed up the hill, down the other side, and began organizing the soldiers into ranks. The soldiers formed up in a few seconds flat, and Ziff gave the order as all 3 brothers climbed the hill.
March!
General Cole sat in his tent, looking over a map of the terrain. The Arctic Fox commanded the army sent to liberate Frostblight and the surrounding area, setting up a front for the planned siege of the capital. He was strongly built, and his face had a sort of far-off look, as though he were always looking into the future. His captains sat around the table also. They were planning the assault on the feline defenses. A hyena pointed out a vague area of woods.
Perhaps we could flank them from the ardent woodlands.
Cole shook his head.
No. They will be expecting that. They may set a trap.
A husky sighed and adjusted his armor, which he was still wearing from an earlier skirmish. We've been at this for hours. Maybe we need a break and a fresh start. We might come up with something then. Cole nodded and stood, opening a flap on the tent, looking out over the field of ice with his thin red eyes.
Yes, I think you're right. It matters not when we formulate the plan, we will. And when we do, the people of Frostblight will be free, and we will wreak bloody vengeance upon every feline in the capital!
Miri lay back and sighed, exhausted from a day of work. Although her bed was soft, she knew it came with a price. She shivered and tried to fall asleep as fast as she could. She jumped as the door opened, someone stepping through.
Miri? Come with me.